In this video, we are going to talk about tissues, plant tissues mainly. Animal tissue will be discussed in another video. Tissue as such, tissue is a group of cells which performs a particular function. The function of plants, everyone knows what are the functions of plants. They are very different from what the functions animals do. Therefore, the plant tissues are very different from the animal tissues. What are the basic thing in which they are different? The plant tissues are mostly supportive in nature. Most of them are supportive in nature. In animal tissues, the supportive tissues are limited in number. Say 10 to 20%. But here a large portion of plant tissues are supportive in nature. Most of them are dead tissues. Inside the plant body there are dead tissues, and these dead tissues are useful for them. They are needed by them. That is not so in our body. In our body, the dead tissues, they are not tissues, they are formed from the tissues. Hair and nail are only the dead parts, but they are proteins, they are not tissues. So that is one big difference. And second thing are that they grow throughout their life. So that is very important, these 3 points which make the plant tissue different from animal tissue. The plant tissues are mostly supportive in nature, which is not so in animal tissues. Most of the plant tissues are dead, they are a part of the body, they are needed by the body. And then the tissues grow throughout the life. We'll go into detail what are they. When I classify plant tissues, basically the plant tissues are of 2 types. They are called meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. I am just giving you the classification, then we'll discuss about each one by one. The meristematic tissues are also classified into 3 types. They are called apical meristematic tissues, lateral meristematic tissues, and intercalary meristematic tissues. These are the 3 main types of meristematic tissues. The permanent tissues are classified into 2 main types, the simple and complex. The simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. We have to discuss about each of the branches, the ultimate. The simple permanent tissues are mainly 4 types. They are called as parenchyma, collenchyma, the third one is sclerenchyma, and the 4th one is called as protective tissues. These are 4 types of simple permanent tissues. The complex permanent tissues are just 2, that is the xylem and the phloem. So that is the classification of various types of plant. The plant is composed of these many tissues actually. 3 meristematic tissues and 4 simple permanent tissue and 2 complex permanent tissue. What are they? In what way they are different? Where are they found? That we will discuss now. Is that clear? The meristematic tissues are the tissues that we discussed in the beginning, are the tissues which continuously divide throughout the life of plant. The animals, in animals, the growth stops after a certain age of time. In human beings, after 18 years the growth stops. But plants, even if it is 50 years old, then also it grows every year. Thanks to the presence of meristematic tissue in them, which keeps dividing, adding new cells. And growth occurs by only 2 methods: increase in the number of cells and increase in the size of the cell. So that is the importance. If you study in general, a very general diagram I will draw. the plant, suppose this is your ground level. So the plants have two main parts, one above the ground and a portion below the ground. Generally we call them, the portion below the ground is called as the root and the portion above the ground is called as the shoot. There are certain meristematic tissues which are present only at the shoot tip and the root tip. That is the first type of meristematic tissue, which is called as apical meristematic tissue. In short, the meristematic tissue is also called as meristem. Apical meristem, they are present at the shoot and the root tip. And what is the function? They keep dividing, that is their main function. When they divide, they add new cells. New cells are added at the top, new cells are added at the bottom. So when new cells will be added, the length grows. So it causes increase. It increases the height of the plant. So that is the function of apical meristematic tissue. Increases the height of the plant. The root increases, bottom at the below the ground level, and shoot grows up. As you know, as the plant gets older, the height goes on increasing. It is due to the first meristematic tissue called apical meristematic tissue. The second one is called as lateral meristematic tissue. Lateral meristem. They are present along the circumference of the plant parts. Generally, when I cut the plant along the length, it is called longitudinal section. Along the longitudinal section, then you will see on the sides the lateral meristems are present. But the stem, stem is a cylindrical structure. If you cut it like this, you will see at the top the circular portion. This is the cut portion of the stem at the tip, and all along the circumference you will find that is on the sides of the stem, branch, and all those, the lateral meristems are present. When they add new cells, what will happen? The new cells are added along the circumference, so the diameter increases. It increases what is called as the girth of the plant. Roots, stem, branches, इनका जो thickness है, diameter है, वो मोटा होता जाता है. आप देखते होंगे प्लांट जैसे जैसे बड़ा होता जाता है, उसका एज होता जाता है, उसका स्टेम थोड़ा चौड़ा होता जाता है. So who does that? It is the lateral meristem. And the third one, which is present only after certain gaps. If it is present here, then it will be here, then it will be here. They are not continuous. These meristematic tissues are called as intercalary meristems. Every stem and branch is characterized. Suppose this is a stem. The characteristics of this stem is at regular, or suppose there is a branch from the stem. At regular intervals, you will see there are certain meristematic tissues which are at regular intervals like this. These portions where they are present are called nodes. These intercalary meristems are present at the nodes. Nodes are present in every plant, but it is clearly visible in certain plants, like say you might have seen bamboo. You have seen joints here and there. Sugar cane, गन्ना खाया, उसमें जहाँ तहाँ गांठ होता है. So those are the places called as nodes, and nodes are the places where intercalary meristems are found, and they help in the formation of new branches or leaves. When you observe a plant, you will see from the stem a branch comes here. Suddenly you don't find a branch closer to it. You will find a branch after a certain gap. आप observe करेंगे mango tree, guava tree. From the stem, if a branch comes here, then after a certain gap, another branch is there. The branches are not continuously coming. Why they come at a gap? Because the nodes are present at gaps. and the nodes from in between the two nodes, this area is called as internode. You will never see a branch coming from internode. That might be a question, one more question. Why branches do not come at internode? Only because for the formation of branches, you need intercalary meristem, and the intercalary meristems are present only at the nodes. Because internode do not contain intercalary meristem, so they cannot help in the formation of new branch and leaves. So the next type of tissue in plants are called as permanent tissue. Permanent tissues, they do not divide. Although permanent tissues have developed from the meristematic tissues, which you have just now studied. There are meristematic tissues in the beginning. The meristematic tissues go on dividing. Large number of cells are formed. Among them, suppose thousands of millions of cells are formed. Among the cells, certain group of cells, they stop dividing. Is that clear? And those group of cells which stop dividing, they change into permanent tissue. That is not the only thing. If you see meristematic tissues, they are made up of irregularly shaped cells. They have no intercellular space. So if I draw a small portion like this, there are many cells which are irregularly shaped like this. Large number of cells having a nucleus and dense cytoplasm. So that is how you will look into a meristematic tissue. Now when they develop, the development of meristematic tissue into permanent tissue, that process is called differentiation. Whenever cells undergo change in the shape to transform a particular type of tissue into another tissue, that process is called as differentiation. Differentiation में क्या होता है? The cells become oval shaped. The moment they become oval shaped like this, there is another cell here. The next cell will be here. The cells are attached with each other, no doubt. But because of the change in the shape, you can see what happens. In between the cells, here, 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 what is this? They develop intercellular space. So that is the transformation. The moment you see, of course there is nucleus, and as studied in the first chapter, the cells might have a large vacuum, each cells, and then the cytoplasm. So this group of cells become very different from that, and that is the transformation that occurs from meristematic tissue to permanent tissue. The first formed permanent tissue just from the meristematic tissue is called parenchyma. It is known as parenchyma. That is the first permanent tissue that develops, and then this parenchyma changes into other structures. We'll just now say. So as discussed, the first differentiated tissue from meristematic tissues, the moment they stop dividing only for one purpose. Meristematic tissues have just one function to perform. They divide, they add cells, and they help in growth. We have just now seen either growth, increasing the height. How the plant grows? The plant grows by increasing the height or increasing the diameter or forming new branches and leaves. प्लांट का ग्रोथ में यही चीज में होता है, जब प्लांट छोटा से बड़ा होता है क्या ऑब्जर्व करते हैं? एक उसका हाइट बढ़ता है, एपिकल मेरिस्टेमिक टिश्यू, एक उसका थिकनेस बढ़ता है, लेटरल मेरिस्टेम, और नए नए ब्रांच और लीफ बनते हैं, इंटरकैलरी मेरिस्टेम. तो मेरिस्टेमिक टिश्यू का काम है सिर्फ ग्रोथ. लेकिन क्या प्लांट में सिर्फ ग्रोथ होता है? देयर आर अदर फंक्शन टू परफॉर्म, लाइक फोटोसिंथेसिस, respiration, transportation, lot of other life activities. So for that they need another tissue, and that is how meristematic tissue changes into permanent tissue. And as discussed, the first formed permanent tissue from meristematic tissue is called parenchyma, which looks like this. The cells are oval in shape. The cells are oval. Intercellular space is formed. Intercellular space is vacant actually. It is present clearly. And the cells are alive. They are living cells. And they carry out life activities. All the life activities are performed by these cells, and there is exchange of material. Exchange of material is efficient, is very good between the cells. That is, all the required materials can go from one cell to another cell, from any part of the cell. The cells can, diffusion and osmosis that occurs between the cells very efficiently, 100%. But then, as discussed when I was talking about vacuoles in the previous video, you remember? The vacuoles, what they do? They store the waste. Dekhiye, what say? Vacuoles are there inside every cell. And whenever wastes are formed, the waste materials are stored in the vacuoles. But a time comes when the vacuoles are filled up. The vacuoles completely filled up. Vacuole is the only place where you can keep the wastes to keep the cytoplasm alive. But if the vacuoles are filled up, then what happens? Then the cells search for places where they can easily. This is a plant cell, mind you. If you can draw two membranes around every cell, that will be better. Because we all know that a plant cell is surrounded by double membrane, the cell wall and cell membrane. Same case here also. You can draw it like that. Every cell has two membranes, the cell wall and cell membrane. Now see carefully. The moment the vacuole is filled up, the cells cannot keep the waste materials in the cytoplasm. So what they do? They push it out into these intercellular spaces, like this, away from the cytoplasm, so that the cell organs are not damaged. In these intercellular spaces, they are pushed in. So what happens? The cells here are again oval. That is similarity with parenchyma. But the second process, you can see what happens here. The intercellular spaces gets filled in. And the cells actually, you see, these are called as corners of the cell. Not all along. Here it is having a thin wall, no doubt. But the corners, they say the cells get thickened at the corners. Here, at the corner. See, corner, it is not a square that it has four corners. It is a circle. But the wastes are not all around. Here and there, at the corners where they join with the other cells, the wastes are deposited. So, इससे क्या होता है? The tissue becomes a bit heavier as compared to parenchyma, and their cells are alive, no doubt. The life activities goes on, but even the last step is disturbed. The exchange of materials slows down. Why it slows down? Because wherever wastes are there, from that place now the materials cannot pass. So there are limited spaces left. जहाँ जहाँ waste जमा हुआ वहाँ से exchange नहीं हो सकता है. Waste, they fill the gap, and through the waste the materials cannot pass. So exchange of materials little bit slows down. Parenchyma becomes heavier than parenchyma. Parenchyma basically helps in storage and life activities. But parenchyma, it provides strength because it is heavier, plus also gives flexibility because till now the cells are still alive. But then, once the intercellular spaces are filled up and the cells are alive, so they will carry out the life activities. Vacuole भर चुका है, इंटरसेलुलर स्पेस भर चुका है, लेकिन सेल अभी मरा नहीं है, सेल्स आर लाइव, सो एक्टिविटीज जारी है। जारी होने से क्या होगा, सम मोर वेस्ट मटेरियल्स आर फॉर्म्ड, वेयर विल दे गो नाउ, सो दीज वेस्ट आर नाउ डिपॉजिटेड ऑल अराउंड द सेल। देखो ये सेल मेम्ब्रेन और सेल वॉल, एवरी सेल इज ए प्लांट सेल हैविंग ए सेल मेम्ब्रेन एंड ए सेल वॉल। अब इसके अंदर इसको कहां मौका था वेस्ट मटेरियल को रखने का। फर्स्ट वाज द वैक्यूल, सो वैक्यूल्स आर फिल्ड अप, सारे सेल का जो वैक्यूल अंदर था वो भर गया। वैक्यूल थोड़ा बड़ा बना ले, all the vacuoles are filled. Now what the cells did, they tried to keep it away from the cytoplasm, so they pushed it in the intercellular spaces here. But now intercellular space is also filled up. So to keep the waste away from cytoplasm, what they did? They pushed it between the cell membrane and cytoplasm, जो कि cytoplasm के बाहर है। केवल cytoplasm के सेल ऑर्गेनेल को जिंदा रखने के लिए they pushed it out of cell membrane. So out of cell membrane मतलब it is pushed between cell wall and cell membrane. So इससे क्या हो जाता है? The cells are completely surrounded with wastes, and the exchange of materials completely stops. There is no diffusion, no osmosis. The cells cannot get water, cannot get required materials, so the cells die. So that is what he says, parenchyma is nothing but a group of dead cells. Otherwise parenchyma, parenchyma are living cells. So that is the change, a slow conversion. Parenchyma, parenchyma, parenchyma are not different tissues. The first form tissue is definitely a meristematic tissue, which slowly stops dividing to get converted into parenchyma. Parenchyma changes into parenchyma. As the deposition of waste continues, parenchyma changes into sclerenchyma. तो ये भी डाउट नहीं रखना है कि सारा parenchyma parenchyma बन जाएगा, parenchyma sclerenchyma, तो फिर लाइफ एक्टिविटी कौन करेगा? तो मेरिस्टेमेटिक टिश्यू तो डिवाइड कर ही रहा है, नया सेल बन ही रहा है, वहां से फिर नया parenchyma बनता चलेगा। Is that clear? So we have seen the three types of permanent tissues: parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. But in the classification part, I told you that the permanent tissues are of two types. You have noted down: simple and complex. What is simple permanent tissues? It is group of similar cells. A tissue in which all the cells are exactly similar. And we have seen in parenchyma, all the cells were living cells. All the cells had intercellular spaces around them. All the cells were similar. Collenchyma में भी all the cells का intercellular space भरा हुआ था, vacuole भरा हुआ था, सारे cells एक जैसे थे। Sclerenchyma में all the cells were dead. मतलब the tissue is made up of all same type of cells. Therefore, these three were called as simple permanent tissue. There are two more simple permanent tissue. What is called as epidermis and cork. Nothing much to know about epidermis. Is present as the outer covering of the plant parts. They are present all around the stem, all around the branches, all around the leaves. The leaf are flat structure. Upper epidermis, lower epidermis. Roots are surrounded by epidermis. The outermost cell, outermost layer of cells is called as epidermis. They are basically protective in function. Because they protect from heat, water, microorganisms. कोई भी प्लांट पार्ट है, सपोज दिस इज ए लीफ ऐसे बहुत पतला दिखता है, लेकिन माइक्रोस्कोप में देंगे तो थिकनेस होगा. दिस इज द अपर पार्ट एंड दिस इज द upper part and the lower part. Both are completely surrounded by tightly packed cells. They are different from parenchyma and other because there is no intercellular space. The space appears only in leaves. They develop pores. You have studied it. That is called as stomata. So that is it. The upper surface and the lower upper surface of the leaf, lower surface of the leaf is surrounded by tightly packed cells, and that is called as epidermis. It is protective. It protects the plant parts from excess heat, water, entry of water, more water if it enters, that is also harmful, and also from microorganisms. So that is it, the epidermis. The next is cork. If you understood what is sclerenchyma, so I can say cork is a sclerenchyma tissue. So why are we studying it separately? So this sclerenchyma that we have studied till now, it is due to deposition of wastes called lignin and pectin. Lignin and pectin are the waste materials formed in general plants, and they are heavy in nature. They make the tissue heavier and more strong. But a special sclerenchyma tissue developing in only some plants, not in all plants. It is due to the deposition of a waste called suberin. It is another waste. देखिए डिपोजिशन जो लिख रहे हैं, क्यों लिख रहे हैं? अभी आपने देखा था कि स्क्लेरेंकाइमा टिश्यू में जो सेल्स है उसके चारों ओर वेस्ट डिपॉजिट हो जाता है. द सेल्स आर सराउंडेड बाय वेस्ट. तो वेस्ट कैन बी लिग्निन, पेक्टिन और सुबेरिन. अगर लिग्निन पेक्टिन है तो टिश्यू हेवी. दोनों में वही है, lignin ho, pectin ho, या suberin ho, the tissue will become dead, the cells will be dead. It is also a group of dead cells, they are also a group of dead cells. But what is the speciality of this? Suberin is such a waste material that it makes the tissue lightweight and smooth, not heavy and rough like lignin and pectin. That is the specialty. You can see it is used as the bottle stoppers. बहुत सारे बॉटल में वो कॉर्क लगा होता है, या आपने देखा होगा वो जो कॉर्क आप खेलते हैं बैडमिंटन में, जिसमें फेदर लगाया रहता है नीचे जो होता है. हाउ मच लाइट वेट इट इज, इट फ्लोट्स ऑन वाटर. सो दैट इज मेड अप ऑफ कॉर्क. सो दीज आर द सिंपल परमानेंट टिश्यूज. Simple permanent tissues are basically 4 types बोलते हैं हम लोग: parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, and protective tissue. Protective tissue is epidermis or cork. How cork stops? Cork is impervious to water. जैसे aquatic plants हैं, तो aquatic plants में cell damage हो सकता है, ज्यादा water enter कर जाएगा तो decompose कर जाएगा, सड़ जाएगा पत्ता उसका. लेकिन इसके ऊपर एपिडर्मिस पर एक कॉर्क का लेयर बन जाता है जो कि वाटर को एंट्री होने से रोकता है. सो इन दैट वे इट प्रोटेक्ट्स द प्लांट. सो इन दिस वीडियो वी हैव सीन मेरिस्टेमेटिक टिश्यूज एंड परमानेंट टिश्यूज. Video will become longer. In the next video I will upload about the complex permanent tissue, which are very important, the xylem and phloem, their structure and function. We will study in the next video. Thank you.